Hello and welcome to the very first podcast from the Global Circle Club. My name is Umesh Dhanji. I am the founder of the Global Circle Club, and today I'm very pleased to have as my guest Heloisa Jardim, an organizational well-being expert. Over to you, Heloisa. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Umesh. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, defining myself, it's not always an easy question. I like to define myself as a curious person, but a curious person about other people, about human nature, what makes us as humans be well, and what drives us. And that curiosity actually has driven my career. And currently the work that I do is, for the past many years, is research into what is well-being, how do we measure people's well-being, and what drives people's well-being, or what I call flourishing, what makes us flourish as human beings.
This is very interesting and fits very well with what we actually believe in at the Global Circle. So tell us a little bit more about flourishing. Sounds like a very interesting concept.
Yeah, so flourishing, we actually have a flourishing measure, which is the subjective measures of well-being. It was developed by a group this measure specifically that I use was developed at Harvard, which is the group that the university that I've been working with for the past 6 years in this flourishing work. And so the way we measure flourishing is by 6 dimensions. And those dimensions are happiness and life satisfaction, health, physical health and mental health, our character and virtue, our meaning and purpose in life, our financial well-being, as well as our social connection. So all of these aspects of well-being are important human needs that we all have in order to be well.
That's very interesting. So for us as a company or as a brand, connection is at the forefront of what we do. And basically, we want to find more and more ways of connecting people and finding meaning in their life. So tell us a little bit more about the actual connection side of it, which I think this is like something super important for us.
Actually, this is one of my favorite pieces of the research. And I don't know if you know this, Harvard's longest study, it's been over 80 years of quality of life. They found that the quality of our relationships or our connections is the best predictor of our quality of life. So connection is definitely one of the most important aspects of our lives. And we are actually not having a lot of connection. Actually, because of the COVID pandemic, this has been worsened in so many ways because we are in our homes working remotely, which in many ways has helped a lot of people, but in other ways it has worsened the loneliness, what I call the loneliness pandemic. Loneliness hasn't been an issue just during the pandemic. In 2017, the UK created a role for a minister of loneliness because of this issue. And so it's been around. Lack of connection or loneliness has been around for a while now, and the COVID pandemic has worsened it a lot. Actually, the US also declared a public health issue, the loneliness. So it's very important that we focus on the ways that we are creating spaces and structures for us to connect truly to each other, because that is a big pillar of our quality of life and our well-being.
It's interesting what you say about loneliness. Actually, I wrote an article about co-living and how community is very, very important. And one of the things I came across in my research was what actually said, it really surprised me, that loneliness can be worse than smoking and alcohol for your health. So this really brought it to my attention. I was like, wow, this is it's beyond just being lonely or sad. So tell us a little bit more about loneliness and what it actually means.
That's a very good question because we have a three-level definition of loneliness by social psychologists, and usually we only focus on one. So it's important for us to look at the whole picture. So the first level is at the interpersonal level, and that's what we are usually used to. So our relationships, to our close relationships. Do we have quality relationships that we can connect? So that's one piece of loneliness, or not being lonely. The second piece is the existential level. So is there meaning in what? If we don't find meaning in how we relate to people, it's not just about having many people around us, but are we building meaning into the relationships? And the third piece is the societal level. Do we feel we belong? Are we accepted in the community that we're part of? Do I feel that sense of belonging? So we need to look at loneliness from this 3-point definition so that we can go deeper into how can we build the connection. Because as I see it, loneliness is on the other side of the spectrum of connection. So if we want to build connection, true deep connections on those three levels, so that we can avoid being lonely, we can avoid the loneliness pandemic, we can avoid all the effects, like you mentioned, of alcohol and cigarette being worse on our health, we can avoid all the bad outcomes in our health that loneliness can cause.
So can you share something that you found, some interesting facts or information about social connection through your research and your work?
Yes, of course. So the research that I do, the population, our working populations all over the world, we go into organizations to understand the state of well-being, social connection, as I mentioned, being one of the dimensions of well-being or flourishing, and what drives, what impacts that well-being, as well as how does the well-being impact how people feel at work. And what we found is that the people who feel, and we ran a study during the pandemic with a global corporation, and we found that those who felt socially connected still during the pandemic had less impact in their mood, in their distraction at work, in their feeling of autonomy, in their depression indexes, in their anxiety indexes, as well as their mental health, their life satisfaction, and other performance metrics like engagement and being productive. So those people who feel socially connected are actually better off in so many areas of life and work than those who don't. So it's very crucial that we keep building these connections every day of our life, at work and outside of work, so that we are well both at work and outside of work as well.
That's very, very interesting. So can you give us a few tips or some advice on things people can do to sort of counteract these social connection problems?
Yeah, well, so I like to go back to the definition. I always like to go back to the fundamentals. So if we think about those three levels of loneliness or connection on the other side of it, when you think about your interpersonal, you can ask yourself a question the next time that you are in a gathering with people, you're on a one-on-one, you can ask yourself, how present are you with that person? Are you really there? Are you really connecting with that person? So that takes care of really building on your interpersonal relationships. The second one, remember, it's the existential piece of connection. So again, if you go into a meeting, or if you go out with your friends, or whatever gathering you are in, you can ask yourself, what's the meaning of this gathering? If you're in a meeting, what's the meaning? Are we meeting just for meeting, to put on the books, or are we meeting really to build something together? If you're going out and doing other thing with your family or friends, why are we here? Why are we together? Or are we just on our phone? So remembering that, what is the meaning of this gathering, takes care of the second part of connection. And the third piece, the societal piece that we talked about, and that sense of belonging, greater belonging, I would ask myself, am am I being aware of every human being that's in the room? So am I creating that sense of belongingness for others? Am I seeing others, or I'm just like passing by and not seeing the human being that's right in front of me? And that's very crucial in building this sense of belonging for everyone and feeling that as well. So ask yourself those 3 questions, no matter if you're at work or just in life in general, with family, friends, or by yourself. Ask yourself those 3 questions, and it's going to be very helpful in keeping up with your social connection.
Thank you, Louise. You've given our listeners plenty of food for thought. I think there's a lot of brilliant ideas there, and I think it's something we really need to pay attention to and think about. And especially in this current sort of post-pandemic, if we can call it post-pandemic, people remote working, traveling around and trying to make sense of things. So I think this is a great time as people to sort of be a bit introspective and think about these things. So anything else last you would like to say?
Thank you, Umesh. It's been a pleasure. And if I can ask people to think about something or leave people with something, is to really think about their well-being as not something that just happens in their vacation time or their weekends. Their well-being is every day. We need to nurture it every day. It's not just our physical or mental health. Like I mentioned, it's our social connections as well. And it can be nurtured through our work. And the message that I take around the world is, can we build the workplaces that we're all currently part of into huge playgrounds of well-being, and not the current prisons of fear and anxiety that we're seeing so many places. I really want to transform the world into a big playground, the world of work into a big playground for people to be well, to be creative, to innovate, and to connect with each other. And so I thank you for the opportunity to take this message around the world.
Thank you once again, Heloisa. So where can people reach you?
Yeah, so on social media, for sure, I'm on LinkedIn as Heloisa Jardim, Heloisa with an H. And on Instagram is Elo, which is my nickname, Elo Jardim, also with an H. And I'll be happy to exchange, to talk more about this and hear more about how people are nurturing their well-being. Thank you, Umesh.
You are very welcome, Eloise. Thanks once again for joining us on this podcast. You can find us on social media at Global Circular with an R at the end, or at Global Circle Club, and online at globalcircle.club or theglobalcircle.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Umesh Dhanji, Global Circle Club, if you want to get in touch. Take care and see you all soon. Bye-bye.